Good afternoon. I'm Heather with the Institute of Child Nutrition, and you are here on our CACFP 101 webinar series. I also want to give a quick a reminder to save the date for next month's webinar, which is going to be on mealtime chats, fostering healthy habits and nutrition education. And that will be on October the 24th, or I'm sorry, the 21st. Also, did you know that ICN has a help desk that is just for you? If you have questions about child nutrition programs or you want to order resources from our website, you can email us at helpdesk@theicn.org. You can also call our toll-free number to talk with a live person who will connect you with a subject matter expert for your questions. Also, this just in, the new Research at a Glance is here. And in this issue, you'll find a year in review from our Applied Research Division, highlights of current research projects, a feature on our top resource, which is Competency, Knowledge, and Skills for School Nutrition Chefs, an overview of ARD and our strategic priorities. You will also meet our ARD team members. You can read the full issue at the website link provided. So again, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, which is going to be on integrating plant-based alternates in the CACFP. And during this session, all attendees will be muted. If you have questions, you can type those in the on your screen, and we'll also answer as many as we can, but some may not be addressed due to time constraints. Please use the Q&A box only for questions to the presenter. And after the webinar, a short survey will pop up. Your feedback helps ICN plan future webinars. If you registered, you'll also get a follow-up email within 24 hours. And this email will include a link to the recording in iLearn, which is our online learning platform, the survey link in case you missed it after the webinar, and also your webinar certificate. Please note that the slide deck will not be shared today. The recording will only be available as a video in iLearn. And as a reminder, ICN offers two other webinar series, which is CICN, which focuses on the culinary side of child nutrition, and also the STAR webinar, which is designed for school food nutrition programs. The CACFP 101 webinars are created especially for family childcare homes and childcare centers. You can find all of these webinars in the iLearn portal. So hopefully by the end of today, you will learn about the health and environmental benefits of using plant-based meat alternates in the CACFP, and you'll also discover some simple ways to introduce, prepare, and serve plant-based meat alternates. And just as a reminder, the ideas and opinions that are shared in this webinar are those of the presenter and do not necessarily represent the official views of the Institute of Child Nutrition. So let's meet today's guest panelist. This afternoon, we have Michelle Salatan. She's the Institutional Support Manager at Balanced, where she brings a wealth of information in school nutrition. She is passionate about fostering health and wellness in children's lives and advocates for inclusive, collaborative strategies, prioritizing nutrition security and public health advocacy. Michelle works closely with schools to introduce and expand their plant-based meal options in their menus, and her collaborative efforts with school administrators, nutritionists, and food service providers have led to successful partnerships with numerous educational institutions, resulting in a significant increase in the availability and popularity of plant-based meals in school cafeterias. And I'm so excited to welcome Michelle today. I'm excited to see what she has to share with us. So welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Heather. I'm just about to, I have a tickle in my throat as we start. So excuse me, but thank you for having me. I am going to share my screen so we can get this presentation going. Can everyone see what I have up there? We're good to go. Perfect. Okay. So thank you, Heather, and thank you for having me here. I'm always excited when we get a large crowd, which we have today, to talk about how to serve plant-based proteins in schools, and this time in the CACFP. I literally just flew back from the Head Start Fall Leadership Conference in DC and actually added a few things that I learned there into this slide presentation. It was I hadn't been before. It was a really great conference, really great ideas, and lots of positivity, and hoping that things will continue to progress in this space. So today we're talking about integrating plant proteins and plant-based meat alternates in the CACFP. A little bit about our agenda, talk about myself and the Balance, the company I work for. We'll talk about the power of plants, why plant-based in CACFP, how to get started, sourcing plant-based products. We'll talk about after-school snack programs and where you can integrate some of these proteins, build in buy-in with your team, with your participants, how to market these new meals, successful taste tests, and then some resources that we have for you at the end. So believe it or not, I am a former executive pastry chef. Met my second husband and I was working crazy schedule. It was not Monday through Friday. It was weekends, it was holidays. And I said, what can I do to take my skills that will give me a reasonable work-life balance? And that was getting into school nutrition. So I actually started in a school that was K through 8, very rural, and was the cafeteria manager, ran a Head Start program through that school, moved around to a few different schools, and then was promoted to an administration position where I worked with 100 managers across 81 schools with 5 Head Start programs. I led recipe and menu development, our Harvest of the Month program. We increased scratch cooking, introduced plant-based meals. And then in 2023, I came across the posting for this institutional support manager program at Balanced, and then the rest is history. I work with many schools across the nation. We do have a position in Illinois right now because they have a bill that was passed that plant-based meals must be served in schools upon request. And so it really almost fell into our lap that Illinois needed the support to get these meals going. So let me talk about Balanced. Balanced is a nonprofit. We're a nutrition security and public health advocacy organization, and we are committed to preventing and reducing the impact of diet-related disease for children, families, communities around the world. We do that with an emphasis on nutrient-based interventions, meaning we help institutions change their menus, expand their menu options to take away some of the highly processed items that are on the menu and replace them with some plant-based proteins that are more fiber-rich, more nutrient-dense. We have a big focus on fiber. 97% of kids in this country are fiber deficient and do not receive the appropriate amount of fiber every day, and that is almost everybody. So plant-based proteins, beans, legumes, tofu, those kinds of things really increase dietary fiber when you're serving them to your participants. Balanced is made up of 3 programs. We have an advocacy program where we work with parents, families, students, helping them advocate for more plant-based meals in their institutions. Institutional support, which is what I do. I have 2 other people on my team, and then we have a person that focuses on nutrition policy and research. Balanced is very data-driven. We really follow what comes out, what studies come out in order to position ourselves with what we're doing. So let's talk about the power of more plants. I know people are on this call because they want to make the changes. Their participants are asking for these changes. And so let me talk about the power of more plants, and you can use some of this information when you go to make these changes to talk about why you're making these changes. So it's supporting lifelong health from strong starts to healthy aging. And I've got my little screen share right in my way. Sorry. So the power of more plants. What we're talking about today is expanding the menus, meeting the needs of more participants. Do you have participants in your programs that perhaps cannot or do not choose to participate in the meal program because they can't, because it's not an inclusive meal that honors their culture, their values, or their preferences? Serving plant-based Proteins can advance nutrition security in your community. We all know highly processed foods are not good. They're not healthy. Do I have a realistic approach that animal proteins and processed foods will be in your program's meals? 100%. Same as schools. They have a place there. They will be there. Part of that is financial. Part of that is ease of service. But can we reduce the number of those items that we're serving? And the answer is 100%. The National Council on Aging says over 70% of Americans aged 75 or older have hypertension, the #1 risk factor for stroke and cardiovascular events. In some parts of the country, nearly 40% of families report having no access to religiously or culturally permissible food in their institutions. And then a study published in the Journal of American Geriatric Society found that seniors who eat a plant-based diet are at lower risk of heart disease, stroke, and cancer. I don't know if you know this or not, but the only place that you can get cholesterol is from an animal protein. Dairy, meat, chicken, fish. Those are the only things that you eat that contain cholesterol. I learned that 7 or 8 years ago, and it blew my mind because I just thought everything we eat has some kind of cholesterol in it. So if you have a senior who has high cholesterol, and sometimes that's hereditary, sometimes it has to be dealt with medication. But serving a plant forward diet can truly, truly help them lower their cholesterol. So eating more plants helps to increase or maintain fiber. We talked about that. Calcium, many vegetables have calcium in them, dark leafy greens. Heart health, protein. People ask me very often, I do follow a plant-based diet, and my mother being one, still asks me where I get my protein from. And my answer to her is, have you ever seen an elephant or a gorilla that looks like they're protein deficient, right? They only eat plants. I myself do not look protein deficient. So um, plant-based proteins have lots and lots of protein. Brain health, energy levels, cognitive function, and then again, chronic disease management. So help your participants and centers meet sustainability goals. We all hear about the climate change, and building a sustainable future. These are things that matter to families, they matter to seniors, they really matter to students in K through 12 schools. And so if that is a topic that comes up in conversation with your institution, it's a really great way to market these meals, that you are meeting demand from families and seniors that care about health and the planet by serving these meals. In a Kansas survey, 35% of CACFP participating childcare centers offer vegetarian alternatives at least once a week, meeting the growing demand while reducing environmental impact. And then plant-based meals, such as those featuring tofu, legumes, or tempeh, add variety, appeal to values, and reduce environmental harm while still crediting under the CACFP. So why plant-based in the CACFP? With millions of meals served, small shifts create big change. So I'm sure, like I said, you're on this call, you've heard about plant-based, people are asking for plant-based, you've heard about it in schools and want to know how you can adapt it to your program. And I said to Heather in the beginning, the guidelines that I'm going over with you today are very similar to what we tell our K through 12 participants. Very similar. You're just adapting some of your meals to younger children or older children, but the basic principles stay the same. So I'm sure you know CACFP programs serve 4.4 million children and 116,000 adults on an average day. That's about 1.7 billion meals a year. That is an incredible amount of meals that you have the power to expand and to advance and to add more healthy options to. Families are also looking for culturally relevant foods. Many traditional diets are plant forward. Offering these foods helps programs stay responsive and inclusive. And you're already leading the change. In the most recent study of nutrition and activity in childcare settings, excuse me, it was found that CACFP operators serve meals that highly align with the current dietary guidelines of America. I was reading the report in the Make America Healthy report again, and CACF programs were at 90% or above for fruit, vegetable, whole grains, whole protein, whole foods in how much they were actually serving, which is a really, really high number. So you're already doing the work. CACFP meals play a critical role for many children and seniors, knowing that this might be the most nutritious meal they get in a day. It supports participant health and well-being. You can model healthy, sustainable choices for families, reflect diverse cultures and diets, and meet the evolving needs of participants and families. And the opportunity for your programs. By including more plant-based proteins, you can improve child nutrition and senior health outcomes, provide menu variety and cultural inclusivity, contribute to environmental sustainability. And I really want to emphasize, it is not about all or nothing. I don't usually do these webinars by myself, so it's a lot of talking for one person. But it's not about all or nothing. I am not sitting here telling you, you need to be vegan. You need to make your children vegetarian. Those are the only meals you need to serve. That is completely not true. And once again, we're looking to expand our options. Can you take 2 highly processed items off your menu a month and then advance it next month and take 3 off? Can you swap out 1 animal-based protein for beans or legumes? Still offer it with the cheese. It's a bean and cheese taco instead of a meat and cheese taco. So it's about offering more choices that participants will enjoy and benefit from. I'm sure you all know this, increased flexibilities and exciting opportunities. Last July, the USDA made some new guidelines for meat and meat alternates that included beans, peas, and lentils, and they can be counted either as a vegetable or component in the meal. So a 1/4 cup serving of beans, peas, or lentils counts as a 1 ounce equivalent of the meat alternate component, or a 1/4 cup of the vegetable component. It cannot meet both. But if you serve a 1/4 cup of beans as the meat alternate, and then you serve another 1/4 cup of veggies on the side, you're doing you're doubling the fiber and the nutrient that you're serving these participants. So what counts as a meat alternate in the CACFP? So to count tofu as a 1 ounce meat alternate, a 2.2 ounce serving of commercially prepared tofu must contain at least 5 grams of protein. I will not lie, tofu is not my favorite. There are many ways to make it that it can be enjoyable. We're not asking you to take a 2.2 ounce block of protein and throw it on some brown rice and put it in front of your participants. I wouldn't need that, so why would they? But there are many, many resources that recipes that are made for child nutrition or senior nutrition that do include tofu. I would encourage you to try it and see what recipes are out there that would work. Like I said, legumes and beans, a 1/4 cup serving counts as a 1 ounce equivalent. Soy yogurt, a 1/2 cup serving of soy yogurt counts as a 1 ounce equivalent. I do believe General Mills has a soy yogurt component that is coming out soon. And then nuts and nut butter. And I know some of you will be nut free, but for seniors, for example, 2 tablespoons of nut butter equals a 1 ounce equivalent of a meat alternate. And there's nothing like some nut butter to dip an apple in, to put on some yogurt with some granola and some fruit. So starting off, where do you start? We always encourage the people we work with to set and achieve clear, measurable goals. And these goals can be small, but success depends on having clear, realistic goals to guide the process. Where do you want to be in 2 years? Where do you want to be in 6 months? And start deciding and making decisions on how to get to those goals. Use the data to track progress and celebrate wins. You always want to be celebrating, whether it's with your staff, the bigger community, staff, whatever the case might be. Use the data to track your progress and celebrate. And then adjust as needed. We've done this. You will go through and make mistakes. You will serve a meal that they maybe do not like. Do not get discouraged. Go back and say, okay, how can we readjust this so we can reach our goals and move forward? So here's a few example menu design goals. You do not need to use any of these, do any of these. They're just some really simple ways of you to make some goals and some things for you to achieve. So offer more plant-based meals, right? Number one, increase plant-forward meals by 20% to give participants more nutrient-dense, high-fiber choices. If you serve 5 meals a week, that's 1 meal a week. That's if you serve one plant-based meal a week, you're reaching 20% of meals being plant-based. So, and you don't have to start off with once a week. Start off with once a month, and then next month add 2, next month add 3, and see where you can fit them in. Include more legumes, lentils, black beans. Puree them into soups and sauces. We had a grilled cheese sandwich with a tomato basil soup in the district I worked in, and we blended white beans into the soup to make it thicker instead of using a dairy product. And that was one of our most popular items on the menu. They didn't even know beans were in there, but we could use less cheese in the grilled cheese because we were using the meat alternate as the beans in the soup. Dipped the grilled cheese in the soup, and it was a win-win for everybody. And that's what I mean by it's not all or nothing. They were still eating a grilled cheese sandwich. It was on whole grain bread, but they were eating it with a tomato soup filled with beans. Add a daily plant-forward option. Include one plant-based meal on the menu every day. List it first on the menu and call it the featured entree. Call it a plant powered day. We do a lot of plant powered Mondays, Tuesdays in school districts. Use fewer prepackaged foods. Can you remove one processed item from your menu for the month and then build from there? And then highlight climate friendly meals. Use signage or symbols to show which meals are better for the planet and the environment. So getting started, creating meals that care for every child, every senior, and every family. So again, start where you are, start small, and start familiar. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. These are long-term changes that will not happen overnight. So an opportunity for an easy swap. Look at your menu. And look and think and say, where could I make some of these changes that would not be very noticeable, but that would add more nutrients and add more fiber to the menu? So meat analogs. There are so many really great plant-based products out there that, yes, they're still processed, but they do have less ingredients and they're not as highly processed as some of the products that are out there. I believe a chicken nugget made with chicken has something like 27 ingredients in it. So, which is amazing because it's literally called a chicken nugget. Some of the plant-based nuggets that are out there will have 7 or 8 ingredients in them. Pea proteins, they may have some soy, they may have some tofu in there, but where can you swap them out? Plant-based nuggets, burgers, and sausages are kid-friendly and USDA creditable when labeled correctly, and they're very competitively priced. You'd be very surprised looking at some of these plant-based products that they are coming down in price because the demand is there. Look for CN labeled products to ensure compliance with federal meal patterns, and use them sparingly as a bridge. So if you swapped out if you have an egg, cheese, and sausage sandwich for breakfast, say, and you swap out for a plant-based sausage in that sandwich, you're using it sparingly. You're making a huge, huge change, and one that the kids won't really notice. There's an example: serve plant-based nuggets on chicken nugget day with the same dipping sauces people expect, but don't call it a vegan or plant-based nugget. Just call it a really crispy nugget and see what their reaction is. And then again, switching pork plant-based breakfast sausage for plant-based sausage. These are just easy swaps that will most likely not be noticed. Maintaining familiarity. Like I said, do not just start serving tofu. No advance warning, no reason why you're doing it. Start with familiar meals by using existing recipes and menu favorites, simply swapping out all or some of the animal protein. There are many meatless crumbles out there made from lentils. Some of them are made from pea proteins, and they are a super easy swap in dishes like spaghetti or tacos. So you're not even rewriting a menu. Use all your spices, your sauces, and just swap out the protein. You can even do 50-50. Start with 50% beef and 50% meatless crumbles, and then gradually grow it until it gets to be 100% meatless crumbles or 100% lentils or beans, which would be the ultimate goal. There are many big vendors out there now that have plant-based pasta sauce. If you're a heat and serve kitchen, it's literally in the can with the protein in it. Heat it up and serve it over your pasta. And then, for example, serve bean, veggie, and cheese quesadillas instead of chicken quesadillas. And then sneaky swaps for more nutrition. Like I said, blend beans or lentils into soups and sauces instead of cream or milk. Swap or replace half of your scrambled eggs with scrambled tofu with veggies at breakfast. Swap heavy cheese sides for bean-based sides like black bean salad or roasted chickpeas. And then use 100% whole grain items all of the time, not just whole grain rich. And I mentioned this before. Transition with blended dishes. Use a 50-50 approach by blending plant-based proteins with smaller amounts of meat. Try spaghetti with half beef and half lentils. Make chili with beans plus a reduced amount of turkey or beef. Highlight flavor, not substitution. Again, using all the recipes that you currently have, where could you start to take out 50% of the animal protein and add 50% plant-based protein? You can make chili with completely no milk, just chock full of beans. And it's protein-packed chili. It doesn't have to be called vegan, vegetarian, or plant-based. Just come up with a creative name and use that to describe it. And then moving towards 100% whole food plant-based proteins, which is the ultimate goal if you can. And now if you are a heat and serve kitchen, this is much harder. But if you are a kitchen that is making some scratch-made products, this should be the goal that you want to get to with your plant-based meals. So like I said, gradual transition works best. Slowly shift from blends to fully plant-based proteins. Serve whole food proteins like beans, lentils, tofu, and other legumes. The benefits will add up, and changes are accepted much more easily when introduced over time with familiar flavors and dishes. So getting started for seniors, just a few quick tips that might be a little different than starting with young children. So utilize fortified foods, make use of B12 fortified cereals, plant-based milks, and nutritional yeast. Ensure sufficient protein, include protein-rich plant sources such as lentils, chickpeas, beans, nuts, and seeds to support muscle mass maintenance. And then consider the texture and ease of chewing. Many plant-based proteins like tofu, tempeh, or beans are much easier to chew than some animal-based meats. Experiment with different textures to accommodate varying needs. So how do you introduce these new foods to children? So you've started off, you've used some crumbles, you're using your spaghetti sauce, you're using your taco meat with a plant-based protein, but you want to go further. So how do you start to introduce new foods to young children? So young children, I'm sure you all know this, may need multiple exposures before accepting a new food. They might need to try it 3 or 4 times. And in schools, what we encourage, serve it 3 times, do a taste test 3 times. If 75% or more of the participants liked the meal, put it on the menu. Start small, offer plant-based proteins alongside familiar foods. Make it easy to eat, bite-sized, fork-friendly portions. Support limited mealtime. So You probably do this already. I know Head Start programs serve family style, but make sure the food is cut in ways that they can eat it and they can not, you know, waste time doing it. I did a video when I was in the school district with my 10-year-old stepdaughter, and I timed her peeling an orange. And it took her 25 minutes. And in school, she has a 20-minute lunch break. So, cut up that fruit, make it easier for them to eat. Kids will eat food that is easily presented. Use fun names, super strength beans or brain boosting tacos, or use your director's name and say it's Mrs. Smith's favorite chili. And then I learned this yesterday at the Head Start conference, deconstruct meals for picky eaters. So if you have very young children that don't like everything mixed together, if you're serving, say, a bean and cheese taco, put the beans on the plate, the cheese on the plate, the tortilla, maybe some lettuce, some tomatoes, and let them mix it up themselves. I thought this was a really, really amazing tip. We all know some children do not like their meals mixed together. And so just deconstructing it and putting it on the plate for them to eat how they want, I thought was a really, really great idea. And then introducing new foods to senior adults, right? Adults don't like to try new foods sometimes. We all have in our mind foods that we're not going to like. So how do you get people to come out of their comfort zone? Highlight taste and comfort. Focus on flavor, again, with familiar meals that feel satisfying. Prioritize texture and ease of chewing. Emphasize benefits seniors care about. Connect meals to heart health, digestion, and energy. Offer tasting events. Provide small samples to spark curiosity and reduce hesitation, and listen to the feedback. If people feel like they're part of the process, they are much more likely to be happy with the results at the end. Include cultural and nostalgic dishes, and then engage participants in choice. Let seniors vote, name dishes, or suggest recipes for the menu. And I've said this before, even if you know what you're doing, even to your staff, as long as you allow them to think that they're part of the process, it will make a massive difference in accepting. And I'm going to talk about buy-in a little bit further on. So right here is a menu. I worked with a Head Start program, helping them put some simple plant-based swaps on the menu. And this is something we do at Balance. We can take your menu, look at it, and we could give you one idea where you can make a change, or we could give you 15 ideas where you could make a change, and then you can kind of go at your pace to do what you want. So once again, the toasted cheese sandwich, and this was a menu that they had. We just made some changes. So the tomato soup, we encouraged them to put beans in the soup. Scrambled eggs, we encourage them to do 50% tofu and 50% eggs. On their meatball day, use a veggie-based meatball. Plant-based nuggets. They had biscuits and gravy. I live in the South. I love biscuits and gravy, but it's clearly a treat dish. So either serve it on special occasions or eliminate the sausage gravy and use a plant-based crumble instead in place of it. Substitute plant-based sausage patties for breakfast. Add veggie toppings to pizza. Things like bacon, pepperoni, ham are highly, highly processed items. So if you can kick some of those back and swap some of them out, you'll make a big difference. And then substitute plant-based chicken patties or black bean patties for the chicken sandwiches or the burgers. And then this was a senior center menu that I created for someone, I believe in Arkansas. They had a lot of sweet breakfasts. They had a lot of bacon on their menu. And what we did here was kept some of the sweet options, but made them homemade. So homemade muffins filled with oats and fruit, banana pancakes made with whole wheat flour, scrambled eggs or scrambled tofu, and then we switched to the plant-based sausage. And then on a daily basis, offered oatmeal, homemade granola, a sprinkling of chia and flax seeds, has huge amounts of fiber, fresh cut fruit, and then honey and real maple syrup. Those two things will make a big difference using. And then this was their lunch and supper menu. So a lot of these things were on their menu. They had a chicken pot pie. We switched it to veggie, put some lima beans in there, and you'll meet your protein requirement. We changed their chili to a 3-bean chili. Their enchilada casserole has chicken, but we suggested a black bean and corn salad on the side. And then they had meatloaf and mashed potatoes. And we just said, switch out the beef, switch out half of the beef and substitute with lentils. Down in the supper section, you'll still see pulled chicken sliders with barbecue sauce, but instead of French fries, we suggested oven baked potatoes. Roasted sweet potato wedges with the chicken Caesar wraps. And then black bean nachos instead of beef nachos. So you still get all the spices and all that seasoning, and you still put cheese on the nachos, but you offer homemade salsa, guacamole, and black bean and corn salad. They had heavy desserts. I'm guessing seniors like their desserts. And so still something sweet, but limiting it to a couple of times a week. Black bean brownies, baked apples with oats and nuts, brown rice pudding with fruit. There are many, many healthy options out there for dessert that it just can cut down on the sugar. They can add more fiber and just make it an overall healthier meal. So where do you get all these products from? Balanced has created a plant-based product and vendor directory. And if you go onto our website, which is balanced.org, you will find it. It has hundreds and hundreds of plant-based vendors. It tells you where they're sold, who they sell through, what they count as, do they meet a meat alternate. So go through there. If you're looking for plant-based chicken products, search it and see what comes up. Request samples. We have connections with probably 25 vendors that send samples out to all the schools we're working with. It works two ways, right? The schools get the samples to try. The vendors get their products in front of people, and then it results in long-term orders. And that's happened with a number of the vendors that we've worked with. So use the directory to go through and see what you can find. And then shortly after school snack and CACFP, fruit, vegetables, grains, meat alternates. So some sample combinations could be apple slices and sunflower butter, carrot sticks and hummus, soy yogurt, berries, and granola, or roasted chickpeas and 100% juice. I know the school I worked at, it was chocolate chip cookies, Rice Krispie treats, Doritos, which are all delicious and all okay in moderation, but they're not giving you the best alternatives for your after school snack. So building buy-in, and I'm going to have to speak a little quicker than I was. So why is it important to build buy-in, the foundation for change? Your food service team and staff are the face of your program. Their attitude influences how participants respond. And this goes for teachers in daycare settings. If you serve a meal and they're sitting and having that meal and the teacher's making a face, the kids are not going to eat the meal. It's really, really important to create buy-in, create excitement, listen to opinions, listen to suggestions to really get the participants to be more willing to try these meals. Buy-in isn't optional, it's essential, and one person can completely undermine what you're trying to do. So communicate early and often, ask for feedback, build excitement, and educate with empathy. Simple and supportive messaging, nutrient-packed, fiber-rich meals to help participants feel and do their best. That you are doing, we're not calling anyone unhealthy. We are not saying your meals are not healthy. We are talking about expanding options, adding more fiber, adding more nutrients to the meals, which in turn helps staff and it helps the participants. You will get resistance. It's totally normal, but use it to learn. If you get pushback, respond with curiosity. Listen, tell me more about it. What's your biggest concern? Sometimes resistance is just a sign of needing more support. It's not necessarily defiance. Sometimes it's just not understanding what's going on. So it's really, really important to explain the why you're doing this. Are you doing it to make healthier meals? Are you doing it because families are asking for it? But really, really let them know why. And then train with purpose. Don't just give them the recipe and hope they understand what they're doing. Um, Not everyone knows how to make or serve new dishes confidently. So prepare simple training, how to prep the new recipe efficiently, share tips for answering participant questions, and offer staff taste tests of the new items. Get those samples in, listen to your staff after they try them, and get their feedback. So, marketing and promotion, building awareness and excitement around offering plant based meals. So, why does marketing matter? It increases participant and family awareness, it helps overcome hesitation, and it turns taste test wins into everyday favorites. You want to tell the story, you want to highlight the benefits, you want to use fun, familiar language, and you want to share the successes. It's really important to let families know, whether it's through your newsletter, whether it's through email content, whether it's through posters in the school, why you're making these changes and what the benefits are. Use fun and familiar language and know your audience. I talked about this before. What do they care about the most? Children respond to flavor forward, fun descriptions, and at a certain age, care about the planet. So zesty, protein packed, crunchy, planet friendly. Whereas seniors, parents, and caregivers respond to health forward descriptions, health promoting, brain fueling, vitamin packed, fiber rich, healthful, nutrient dense, and heart healthy. So correspond your messaging to your actual participants and their needs. So again, and this has come up several times, it's not all or nothing. This is not about all or nothing. Behavioral versus identity. Try plant-based versus go vegan. Really stay away from putting V's on things, vegan, vegetarian, healthy, nutritious, and really use fun descriptors for these words. Expanding options versus changing everything. You're just expanding options to people that want the changes. Focus on benefits, energy boosting, brain boosting, global cuisine, fiber rich, or climate friendly. And then again, find out what matters most to your community and incorporate those values into your messaging. Use delicious, appealing language to get participants and staff excited. Highlight flavor and fun. So instead of just saying a vegan burger, doesn't it sound better to say a protein packed black bean burger? Savory lentil chili bowl versus meatless chili. Hearty harvest marinara sauce instead of meatless marinara, which implies you're actually missing the meat. We don't encourage it. It does work in some places. We have found it's not as successful using the term meatless Monday because people are going to the cafeteria or receiving lunch with a preconceived notion that they're already missing something in their meal. If you're doing veggies, highlight the spices you're using in the veggies. Steamed green beans, sure, it's fine. But what about garlicky green beans or zesty roasted sweet potatoes? And use this for all of your dishes, not just for the ones that you're doing plant-based. And then celebrate progress. It's so important to recognize effort as well as wins. So if your food service team is doing an amazing job making and servicing these meals, celebrate them. Can you post pictures of them on social media, in a newsletter, or on your website page? I ran the social media for our nutrition department, and my biggest focus was on the staff. They liked nothing better than a picture of themselves on Facebook showing the incredible work that they were doing. And it really, really boosted morale in a free, easy way. So a little bit about taste testing. Younger children, I know it might be a little bit harder, but 3 and 4-year-olds, certainly, and then certainly with seniors. So this is taste testing with children. How do you do it? You select a food based on your program goals, sample it with your staff, inform families of the taste test, and sometimes, if you can, include them in the taste test. Using small, low pressure samples with children during meal or snack time, and then gather feedback and make menu changes based on what they tell you. And like I said before, don't do it once and say they didn't like it. I remember we were serving a new meal in school, and I had a manager call me at 11:15, and she said they hate it. And I looked at the time and I said, "What time did you start serving lunch?" And she said, 10:45. And I said, well, what time do you serve until? And it was 12:30 or so. And I said, well, I don't think you can really base feedback on the two classes that have come through your lunch line. So let's go through the whole lunch line and see what the reaction is. And by the end of it, it was mixed, but it wasn't that they hated it. So you've got to give them some time. And then the same with seniors. Select a food based on your program goals. Let the staff sample it. Taste test it, gather feedback, and make menu changes. Taste testing new foods allows seniors to share their preferences, helping ensure meals are enjoyable and nutritious, and it also promotes engagement, dignity, and a sense of choice in their daily lives. Have fun when you're taste testing. Make it just one bite. Don't put pressure on participants. Things like stickers for young children are huge. Try it stickers. I ate plant-based. We are happy to provide stickers for you if you can't find them. And make it like it's not a big deal. Just put it on the plate and have a taste of it. Encourage them to start with just one bite. Gathering feedback. This is a survey. I did some nutrition education here in South Carolina, and we served chocolate hummus. And you can clearly see that the chocolate hummus was a huge hit. And then seniors, simple printed out surveys handed out during taste testing, or actually speak to the participants. Give them the samples while they're having lunch and get immediate feedback from them right then and there. So reviewing and implementing feedback, analyze the results, really use your results and change tactics if you need to. Make menu decisions based on the results. Report back to the participants what was learned, what the next steps are, what they liked and what they didn't like, and then implement the change. Finalize the recipe, promote the new item with the same excitement as during the taste test. So what are some key takeaways from today? Embrace flexibility that rather than an all or nothing approach. Involve participants, center staff, families, and the nutrition team in decision-making processes. Conduct taste testing. Simplify the process. Begin with foods that are familiar to everybody. Steer clear of labels like vegetarian, vegan, or healthy. Implement effective marketing strategies. Then gather insights through surveys and feedback and apply lessons learned moving forward. You will make mistakes. You will serve meals that don't go over well. Do not get discouraged. Just start over, see what didn't work, and move on from there. So we have tons of resources and support at Balanced. If you go to our website, balanced.org/resources, you will find them. The vendor directory I talked about, and then there's a QR code that has a lot of interesting articles, some webinars that could be helpful for you. And again, reach out to me at Balanced. Here's my email. We are happy to just take a look at your menu and offer some suggestions. We are happy to help you do a complete overhaul if that's what you would like. We're happy to connect you with vendors to get some samples out to you. So please reach out. We are here to help. If I can answer any questions, I think you can put them in the Q&A, and Heather will go ahead and get that started. But I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your want and desire to make change, and I look forward to working with some of you soon.
Thanks, Michelle. That was a lot of information.
It was
and
a lot of information.
Love it. No, it's good stuff. So I've placed some resources in the chat box for everyone, and I also found a CACFP standardized recipe for chocolate hummus. And so I'm going to try that later with my kiddos. That sounds exciting.
It is delicious.
That it looks good, so I'm eager to try it. We do have a few questions that have came in. And one is maybe explain a little bit more about your plant-based vendor website. We have a question if you can have access to CN labels or product formulation statements through that. So maybe just let our listeners maybe just elaborate a little more on what that plant-based vendor website includes.
Sure. So the vendor directory is for food service professionals. It is for restaurant chefs. It is for consumers. It is for daycare providers. It can be for anybody, and it has what we call tags and categories on it. So the vendor puts their product up, and they can literally click if it's CN labels. They can click if it counts as a meat alternate. They can click where you can buy it, from which Cisco or whoever um, is your resource, where you can buy it, if it's only found in certain parts of the country. So really go in, narrow your search, and they will come up. But it's got everything from plant-based milk to mushrooms that you can use as a burger that perhaps wouldn't work in a daycare program, but they do have options on there for maybe some plant-based nuggets that would work in your program.
Excellent. We have another question from Casper, and I hope I'm understanding the question right. He's asking, does it go better with different demographics? And I'm wondering if he's asking if being more plant forward, have you found that that's different kind of based on where you are? Maybe from your experience, what have you seen?
It can be more accepted in communities where their culture or their demographic is vegetarian or plant-based. We have found that demographics with a large Middle Eastern population, an Indian population, it obviously it's not that it goes over better, but it reaches more participants, right? So you've got a demographic that is looking and asking for these foods. By making these foods, you're adding them to your participation, but you're also providing meals for the rest of your participants. So it kind of kills two birds with one stone. But I will tell you, there is a bigger demand for it with demographics where that's what they eat within their culture. But I do think we've seen increase in participation in schools because we've reached more kids and we've made it accessible to the kids that are already eating lunch and making it something they want to eat. Does that make sense? I hope that answered that.
Yes, it does. We have another question from Cynthia. She would like to know if, I'm assuming from the vendor website, do these sellers and providers ship to Puerto Rico? Is it accessible there as well?
I do not know the answer to that. And I think that will depend on the vendor, but I don't know why they wouldn't. They ship all over the country, so I don't know why they wouldn't. My best response to that would be to contact them directly. If you are specifically looking for vendors that work in schools, daycare programs, Head Start programs, you can certainly email me. I have a list of vendors and contacts that we work very closely with. We do not get anything out of this partnership. It is just, it helps them and it helps y'all out. I'm happy to share those resources with people after the call. And it's a pretty lengthy list of things that work in schools that have been accepted in schools. So they've already done the legwork, which is huge. But reach out to me and I'm certainly happy to get that to you.
We have another question. What have you found to be the most popular product in Plant Forward?
So, and I know I can't name products on this, but there is a very popular heat and serve chicken product that has done really, really, really well in schools that's plant-based. Sandwiches, nuggets, and what you can do is take those products and add them into your salads, add them into your wraps. So you're not just serving a chicken sandwich or nuggets and fries, you're actually adding it into meals where you're taking away some of that animal protein. Kids love things like ramen. There is a really great whole grain noodle product that counts as a grain and a meat alternate where you add all sorts of veggies to it, that has been very successful. And then I think, honestly, using crumbles or lentils in spaghetti sauce and tacos has been very, very successful because you know your kids eat that recipe. You've made it before. All you're doing is adding a neutral protein to it. And I think it's been very successful for schools when they realize that, oh, I don't have to serve tofu as a plant-based protein or a black bean burger that sometimes maybe the texture's a little off for kids, that I can make meals I'm already making and just swap out the protein. And I think that has been very, very successful for schools. And it takes the brain work out of it. You have the recipe already.
Absolutely. I've listed some great resources in our chat, so you guys can take a look at that. Also, if you go back after this video is embedded into our iLearn, those resources will also be available as a drop-down menu option. Again, we're not going to be providing the slide deck today. We've had a few that have asked for that. If this webinar will only be available in video format. So if there are some key information that you missed, you're welcome to go back and look at that in the video format and pause it on those slides that you wanted. We have time for one more question, and it looks like, can you give us a cost estimate? Do you think that the price of these meat alternates are similar to the cost of an animal protein, let's say nugget?
Sure.
Is it pretty comparable
So
or
some of them
comparable?
are. Some of the chicken one I mentioned is a much bigger company, and they are very, very competitively priced. Some of the smaller, newer companies are going to be more expensive. But what we hope happens with demand is that these prices will continue to go down. But ultimately, if you start off with, say, a plant-based crumble in your taco meat, which may per pound be a little bit more expensive than ground beef, but not much. Eventually, if you can do 50-50, 75-50, 100% plant-based protein, and then switch to lentils or beans, which are a quarter of the price of a pound of beef, and go 6 times further, you are at a huge cost win.
Absolutely. Even in your own homes, that
Yeah.
the getting a plant protein through your beans and stuff really helps stretch that dollar.
It
So
does.
that's
It does.
all the questions that we have time for today. Thank you again, Michelle. You guys check her out on balance.org. It's a great website. I've perused it myself, and if you guys come across any great recipes that you have found that are plant forward and meat alternates, feel free to email me those. I come out where you're all for trying new things. So I've got chocolate, and I talked to my friends today, and they recommended black bean brownies. I'm going to try that. So anyway, thank you all so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time and your energy today. And wherever you are, just remember, be safe, be kind, and feed those babies. Thank you guys. Have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
Heather. Take care, everybody.